At 6 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order. Please rise. Pledge of Allegiance.
It's muted.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
Approve the agenda if,
Right there. Mr. Clark,
Arlie, let me see if I can get in there and fix that.
good, because I don't know what I'm doing. You can hear me, Ann? Ann?
I live in the western suburbs of Nodine.
I can hear them now.
Hey, Lynn. We have some people, we have some board members on online. Lynn, can you hear us, Lynn? We cannot hear you.
She's muted. Turn your mic on, Lynn.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, Patrick.
Thank
How
you.
about me, Mark?
Yes, Arlie, can you hear us now?
I can hear you guys now.
You gotta say your name and where you live.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Arlie Herbert, Rolling Stone.
Okay, Lynn
Lynn Carlson, Winona.
and Patrick
Patrick Byron, Winona, Minnesota.
and
Jordan Potter, Winona, Minnesota.
thank you. Okay, you're up.
Planning and Environmental Services Director. So each year we elect a chairperson, vice chairperson. And
We can't hear Kay.
I'll take my mask off, Arlie, thanks. I'm gonna turn it on then. Is this better?
Lynn, can you-
Thanks for letting me know. So
there you go.
we're going to elect a chairperson, and then the chairperson is going to aid in the election of a vice chair and a secretary. I'm the temporary recording secretary. The chairperson, vice chair, and secretary serve terms of 1 year each, which makes sense, and they're elected at the first meeting of the calendar year. And any vacancy created during a term is filled by a special election. The process is to nominate one or more candidates, and it doesn't have to be seconded, and it's not debatable. So all candidates are nominated first. So the names of those nominated, I will repeat, and then before we provide time for, or before we move to our election, I'll just find out if there's any other nominations. So at this point, for chair, are there any nominations? Mr. Flynn,
I'd like to nominate Mark Clark.
okay. Mark Clark is duly noted as a nominee for chair. Are there other nominations, either
Ye-
from online or from this group for chair?
Yes. I would
Go
like,
ahead.
Lynn Carlson, I would like to nominate Kelly Stanage.
Okay, Kelly Stanich has also been nominated
Excuse me,
for
Kay?
chair.
Can I decline? I appreciate the nomination, but I would decline.
Yes.
Respectfully.
Ms. Carlson, Ms. Stanich has respectfully declined while honoring the request. Are there
Okay,
Any other nominations for chair of the planning? I wasn't standing
Speak
that
for
close.
God.
Any other nominations for chair of the planning commission at this time? If not, all those in favor of Mark Clark, please signify by saying aye.
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 And are there any nays? I thought not. Congratulations, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the floor.
Thank you. For the vice chair, are there any nominations? Patrick, Louis,
I'd like to nominate Mike Flynn.
Mike Flynn has been nominated. Is there any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Anybody online? All right, we got one.
Gotta ask 3 times.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. We have to vote, or can we just
You gotta close the nominations.
close the
and
nominations?
a unanimous ballot.
There's Mike Flynn has been nominated vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Secretary, is there any nominations for secretary?
I'll nominate Arlie Herbert.
Lynn. I respectfully decline. I'm involved in two other organizations, and I have my plate full. But thank you.
Okay, I'll
I
nominate.
think how about Lynn?
Okay, I would accept it. I would accept it.
Okay. Lynn Carlson has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Third time. Is there any other nominations for secretary?
What are the job responsibilities of secretary?
Do the packet.
You'll probably have to quit your other job.
Totally review the packet before it's sent out.
I scrutiny for staff to the packet and any advice as to streamlining and improving it.
Oh, okay.
Right. There's one nomination for secretary, Lynn Carlson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Lynn, you're the new secretary.
Woohoo.
Congratulations.
Be quiet, Arlie.
On to the next, approval of agenda.
I would move the approval of the agenda.
Mike moves to approve the agenda, and Jordan seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Agenda is approval of minutes.
I'd move. I'll second that.
Okay. We made the motion and Mike Flynn second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Rules and procedures. Page 13. It's the same ones we had last year. I don't think there were any changes, correct?
That is correct. There are no changes at least recommended by the Office of Planning and Environment.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Kelly, move to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mike seconds to approve. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone say nay? It passed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I did have a question, and I'm late in asking the question, but it's just something moving forward is the ability for committees within county government to do like we're doing, the Zoom option and the in-person option. And right now, we can do that because we're under a state of emergency, but when that goes away, I don't know if this will be allowed. I would like it to be something that we could go forward with to use, but again, it may change, just so people know, and we'll have to be following that as far as open meeting rules and regulations and statutes.
Is that something we have to do locally, or is that like a state?
Well, the state tells us what we can and can't do as far as open meeting laws, so we'll have to interpret what they do moving forward.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that we will likely still be able to do this, but any member of the committee that's not physically in the room may have their premises listed as a spot where the public can be held.
Right, and that
Wherever
hasn't,
a board member is, the public has to be allowed as the addition. So we can still have hybrid, but you might have somebody else in your living room.
and some committees I currently serve on, it is posted where you're gonna be sitting for that meeting. But I've noted in our county meetings, we haven't done that yet. But I always say, if you're gonna come to my house, bring coffee and donuts and I'll open the door. But that the rules may change.
Okay. Thank you. We'll look forward to that. Okay, petitions.
That's something we would want to suggest to our lawmakers to take that into consideration at this upcoming legislative session.
I think there'll be good discussion for county boards. In particular, a lot of meetings are traveling several hours. And when I got members in the western part of the state or northern part of the state where they travel 4 or 5 hours within their own county to get to meetings, the use of Zoom is much more efficient. But again, we need approval to continue doing it. Yeah. So it would be a good thing to keep in mind.
We're going to start the petitions. We got a full plate tonight. Petitions, docket number.
Lynn, are you hitting some weird stuff?
Could people
Mark?
if they're not talking?
Somebody online that can mute, please, so we're not hearing.
I don't know what we're hearing.
I'd have to have them on mute.
Yeah.
Maybe it's A5 going with the airlines.
So our staff member Megan Cabling is joining us remotely.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Start the petitions, she will be.
Testing. Can you hear my audio?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. We're just.
Okay,
we can
great.
hear some background noise, and anyone out there online, please mute if you're not wanting to talk, so we don't have that background noise that's echoing in here.
Yeah. I see 1, 2, 3, 2 folks now that need to mute. But
Yes.
well, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Megan Cabely, and tonight the petition I'm presenting is for Becky Witkowski. She has brought forward a petition to place a mobile home trailer on her property for the purposes of farm help. She would like her grandson to live on site to help her with part-time farm work. This project is located southeast of Winona at the end of the Little Cedar Road. You can see the project area here on our map. Go ahead. So as I stated earlier, this trailer would be placed on site, actually in the same site as a former trailer was placed when Ms. Witkowski's son, Chad, lived on the farm. On the map is the location of that trailer indicated in white. A previous conditional use permit for the trailer ended in 1999 when her son Chad built a house just north of that property that you can see here, kind of right north of where trailer is marked in this map. Miss Witkowski lives in the home just to the northeast of the trailer. Go ahead. There is a correction I want to make. We lost locations in translation on the staff report. You might have found that a little goofy looking at that, but here's the correction to the actual, the proposed location of the trailer site in red on the left. And then as we're looking at the site on the ground, it would be in this red square there placed on top of the snow. That shed would be removed, and actually the trailer would go almost right where that shed is located at. You can barely see the hydrant in that picture, but it would be just behind the hydrant. Next. This is the site plan provided by Ms. Witkowski in comparison with the aerial overlay. The trailer home itself will be about 16 by 76 and about 16 feet high. Parking and access is existing. It's at the end of Little Cedar Road and a continuing farm drive right across from a shed that's existing on site. In 1998, a septic was installed for the previous trailer, and water would be supplied by a hydrant that's indicated in the lower sketch drawing. And like I had stated, the trailer would be occupied by her grandson, Peyton Chassow, and family. Yep, here we go, the location of that. And note in this slide, we are at the crest of a hill, but because it's set back from that hill, staff did not find concerns with visual impairment off of County 9 there to the, it would be to the west. Homer Township did respond and indicate they are in support of the request. So staff recommendation would be the Planning Commission would consider all the materials and testimony before making findings. And because there is a identified end date that we analyzed this as an interim use permit, that end date, I wanted to get this right here. The end date would be identified or recognized as the end of the need for farm help, and or if the grandson no longer occupies the site, or if he decides not to provide farm assistance. And should the Planning Commission decide there are 6 additional conditions that were identified in the staff report. Are there any questions I can answer?
Mr. Chair, yes. Are we requiring them to remove that shed you referred to? Or is that their choice?
That was their choice. They have cited that on their own.
Okay. And you said septic was built for a trailer back in 1998?
Correct.
Just for the trailer or for the homestead and the other houses?
It was actually for the previous trailer.
Okay, and will that have to be re-inspected, or we're just assuming that it's good to go?
Well, at this point, there's no trigger to require a change in septic. They would need to meet state requirements. That's probably where we'll leave it, unless there is an obvious failure in the septic system.
Okay, and then the last issue, IUP, CUP, by our current zoning ordinance, and that's 10 point, let's see, it should be a conditional use permit. Or is the IUP, yeah, 10.4.6. Those are all listed as CUPs.
The, yeah, those are, yeah, we can pull that up. Okay, that's a list of conditional use permits. And then in the 2018 amendment to the zoning ordinance, identified those conditional uses that have a termination date should be analyzed as a interim use permit.
Okay, and it's probably a bigger discussion than it will happen here tonight, but I sit on a number of committees for counties, and several of them are dealing with housing. So here we're asking somebody, they're making an investment in housing, and when they don't use it for farm help or sick help, or they've got to remove it. Now, when we're desperately in search of housing in Winona County, we're like 1,000 units short of housing, and county government, how do we make our money? We tax property. So philosophically, we need to have a discussion at some point in time. Is this what we should really be doing? Somebody's making an investment in a house, family member. That by these rules that were put in place quite some time ago, we're saying when that's done, you have to take, remove that. Is that the best use of time, energy, and property and response to our housing shortage?
Anyway.
I don't know. Yeah.
Is there anyone else, any of the members here have any other questions?
Mark,
What's your question?
I've got a question for Megan. The CUP is up when he moves out. What if somebody moves back into that trailer house, or does it have to be farm oriented?
Yep, under that conditional use, in fact, Kay, if you wanted to pull that back up, it does identify when there can be more than one dwelling on a property, and one is when you're caring for a family member, and the other one is part-time farm help.
Okay.
That's
We're still getting a lot of blah out there. Lynn, are you getting that too?
Yep.
So I don't know what's causing it, but it doesn't.
Okay, anyone?
We're kind of hearing it as a lot of blah blah blah.
I didn't catch that. Was there a question that was asked? Sorry.
No, I was just telling them that for us on the Zoom, I don't know about you, Miki, we're hearing a lot of just blah 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 blah.
My feedback or my audio is pretty good.
No, we're not getting worth of crap. Me and Lynn are going, huh? How about you, Pat?
I wonder, can the board? I can't hear the board at this point.
I don't hear him either. Patrick, can you hear us?
Arlie, try muting your mic.
Okay.
Test.
Actually, my mic's been muted until now, and when Marcia started to talk, the garble got really bad with Marcia's mic. That's when it started this last time, and my mic's been muted until now.
Yes, I was the same way, Lynn. Patrick, can you hear? I can't hear Patrick.
I can't either.
No, I can hear all of you very clearly, but I will mute if it reduces that garble.
Yeah, when we do mute it, it seems to be a little better, but they're still very. We were muted when they were talking before, and it was still bad. But I'll mute again. But now we hear nothing. Do you hear anything, Lynn? No, Megan either. No, Pat. No, me neither.
I just sent a chat to let them know we can't hear the boardroom.
Thanks, Megan. Can you hear us though?
Arlie, I can hear you. I'm on the phone with IT here too. You guys can't hear the boardroom anymore? How did that get
No.
muted? I see
We
it.
hear you.
Yeah, I see that it needs to get unmuted again in there. I have to admit that I don't know how that happened. Okay. So hang on for a minute. Joe, I'll call you back if I need you. Bye.
We'll just sit here and look smart.
In if we're having issues. Okay. The only thing he said is
Can you hear us now?
that are right.
Here's something.
Okay. He said
There's other issues too.
It's not garbage anyway.
Can you hear us now, Arlie?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Pat,
I don't-
Megan,
I don't
Glenn,
hear,
all,
I don't hear the garbling now either, so.
nope.
Okay.
I think Ann has to sit in here. I think that's the problem. I think you gotta stay in here. That's the problem.
Yeah, she knows what's going on. She could take care of it.
Do we think we're ready to continue?
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so I have a quick question for Megan here. As far as the septic system, it was last used in 19, what were the numbers on there? I can't find them here quickly.
1998 was when it was
98.
installed.
Okay, it was installed and it's been unoccupied for how long?
I believe it might have been a 2-year period that they occupied that site.
Okay, so it's been sitting idle, quote unquote, for,
Many years, yeah.
okay, is that an issue in your,
Well, it could be, but we would rely on them to remain into state compliance. We're not going to make them replace the septic system unless it would be obviously failing. It is, up to the homeowner to make sure that their system is meeting state requirements. Now, they could hire a septic person and check the condition of that. But at this point, we would not require them to do that unless we knew there was an obvious failure or effluent like on the surface.
would it be appropriate to make a recommendation, not mandate, but maybe make a recommendation to do due diligence and check it?
Patrick,
That's-
we need to get started on here and you can bring that up during the meeting.
Okay,
Okay?
got it.
You guys are all full of garbage again.
Yes. But we can bring that up when we get into the meeting, but first we need to hear what they're gonna tell us, okay? And I'm
Lynn, can you hear him?
all back again.
Yeah, all the garbage is back again.
Okay.
I heard about half of what Patrick said. Megan came in pretty clear, but even I can hear myself talking and it's not, I don't know what's happening.
We have a quorum here without them.
Where's Ann?
Then
I think those online that can mute themselves should do so.
That wanna speak.
public, yes, but if they're having well, we don't know if they're having.
Now can everyone hear us yet? Okay, we're getting a thumbs up. Everyone can hear us and the garbling is gone, so.
That's because everybody's muted.
I know, but it's when Megan did it that it quit, so I don't know if she's got an echo in there or if it's, I have no idea.
Okay.
Don't know. Okay. Now we're back to the petitioner or representative of the petitioner would please like to speak on behalf of the petitioner. Come up and you gotta give your name and address and.
Good evening. My name is Becky Witkowski, and I am the owner of 23842 Little Cedar Road. That's where I reside in Winona County. I am the petitioner for the trailer home on that property. And I would like to clarify that sewer that is at that the trailer will be using has been in constant use since it was installed. I have a shop on that farm, and the farm, I'm in the shop every day, and there's a restroom in there, and it's used all the time. We have family events in there and so forth. So yes, it does. It has been used ever since it was installed. Are there any other questions?
That's all you got to say. Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to ask a question of the petitioner? Anyone online, wave your hand if you'd like to ask a question, or anybody here have any questions for her? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second that.
Kelly made the motion, and I'll give this one to Jordan, second it. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We see you waving online, that counts. That's good. Okay, the public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, if so, please step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. Okay, online. Kay, are you monitoring the interweb there? I don't see anybody that's, no one in this room wants to say anything. We'll try again. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. Go ahead, come on up here. I know you want to. I can see it in your eyes.
Do we know who guests are on the board? The
No.
blue one.
I assume you're the grandson?
Yeah.
You got anything to say?
Not
Paul?
necessarily.
No, I got nothing that's
Okay.
off my head.
Yeah, but it blinked a couple times. I don't know if you were trying to get our attention.
Mr. Chair, were you gonna mention the 2 minutes? Just before, okay.
Due to the length of this meeting, anyone that wants to speak, please, we're limiting the comments to 2 minutes. I can see that's a real problem tonight. A guest, is there any way we can get a hold of that guest person? If you can hear us, do you want to speak to this one or a different one, or? I have no idea. For the third and final time, does anyone want to speak for or against this petition? If so, please step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. I see nobody standing. I see nobody flashing on the internet.
Move to close the public hearing.
Kelly moved to close the public hearing and Lou seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Waving online, that's good. Thumbs up. That counts. Arlie, thank you. Anyone who doesn't want to close it, say nay. Okay, public hearing is now closed. Well, any discussion? Do we need to discuss a few things or motion to approval? I have a question on one of the findings of fact that I'd like clarified. They put a 10-year limit on it. I've never seen that before. It kind of says they want
Is that page 27?
page 27, they have a 10-year limit, and I do not understand that. I don't know if it's a Scribner's error or what the deal is, but I have not seen that before in a thing, so I would like Stephanie to give us some more. Do we need a motion to change that, or what would you like to do us to?
Well, I guess that's up to you. Where that came from was, it was in the staff report, which is how it ended up in the findings of fact. So it's.
Is that a question for Megan possibly? As to why there would be a 10-year limit on it?
Possibly, but I'm not seeing that she had left the meeting a moment ago.
Okay.
She was disconnected. I'm not sure if she's back yet. I know that the way that the findings of fact were written, we identified the identifiable date or event for termination as when the need for farm help ends and or if the petitioner's grandson no longer occupies the site or provides farm assistance. However, further on, that's where that 10 years comes in. We can remove that 10 years from both the until and that last condition if this board would like that to happen, you just need to let me know if you want that modification.
Ask the petitioner what they would prefer.
What would you prefer?
I would,
Yeah, I think it should be removed, Harley.
I would prefer no limit. I have younger grandsons coming up in the event that my grandson Peyton would have to move on due to work. Then I would want one of the other boys to move into the trailer and help me as well. It's a family farm. They all come back to the farm to hunt and fish and help out. But I'm no spring chick anymore, so it would be nice to have someone to help with the farm work. There is tillage to do, wood to cut, fence lines to upkeep. So, yes, I have, he's the oldest of 5, and I have 3 more boys right behind him.
Okay, I found that a little odd too. Why is it a grandson? Why not grandchild?
That's what was in the report when I wrote the findings.
Okay.
We can change that as well.
So it doesn't matter which grandson or which grandchild. We should change that because that's not
We could
nice.
change it to grandchild
This
and
is 2022 and by the way.
make it encompassing, because there's no individual named.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would move that we make those changes.
Second.
Changes being taken off the 10 years. The 10-year,
10 years have passed could just be removed, and changing grandson to grandchildren or grandchild.
Jordan made the motion, Arlie seconded it. All in favor of the motion or any discussion?
Mr. Chair, can I clarify?
Yes.
There's also, condition number 6 that's attached that also references a 10-year period. I'm wondering if those are tied together for you or if those are separate.
Well, I assume that's part of the 10-year thing, so does that mean it would go away, or do we have to also take number 6 off?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Take it off the list.
If it's off the list, then it's not. So would you like to amend?
My motion, yeah, I would like to amend my motion to do both. Correct.
Arlie, is that a friendly second?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just reading it, but yeah,
Okay. Thank you. Any
I
other-
could, we couldn't hear Natalie talking, whatever she was talking about it, but
Oh,
we got you covered.
okay. Any other discussion?
Question. Can, I could pull it up here, but it'll take a little while. Definition of a manufactured home. It's gotta have wheel, it's gotta be still.
Not
Tiny
necessarily.
house on wheels?
Not necessarily. Manufacturer could be a double wide fixture in the
Oh,
tires.
that's what I'm, yeah, and I don't, again, that's my angst with this IUP, CUP, and housing.
I would say a manufacturer would be a non-permanent. My point of view.
Oh, but what's the ordinance?
To see if we have a definition of manufacturing. It has been interpreted very broadly when it comes to the medical and part-time farm assistants. We've been very lenient with what's allowed under this so far. With the idea that as long as it's temporary, it's meeting that criteria, but I will double check and see if we have it. We do. A structure transportable in one or more sections, which is built on a permanent chassis and designed to be used as a dwelling with or without a permanent foundation when connected to the required utilities and some other stuff.
Built on a chassis means it's on wheels.
Well, it started out on wheels. They can take the
Not
wheels off.
necessarily.
Built on a frame.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll put that on a list to review at some point in time.
It already,
I haven't seen the list, so,
we have the list.
all right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. to strike the 10 years past, change grandson to grandchild, and take number 6 off of the bottom of the findings of fact on page 27. Any other discussion on that? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Thumbs up there on online. Anybody say no, say nay. The motion passed. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we adopt the findings of fact and conditions as revised and recommend for approval by the board.
I will second that.
Kelly made the motion and Mike seconded. Any discussion? Anybody online? Put your fingers up if you want to say something. If not, any discussion here? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
I don't know, thumbs up or something.
Did you give us a thumbs up? Okay, Arlie did a thumbs up.
Does it need to be a roll call vote on?
We like it.
Lynn, thumbs up. Patrick, thumbs up. Okay. Yes, all three of them gave us a thumbs up. The motion is passed. Okay, you pass this hurdle, your thing will be, your petition will be in front of the county board on Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. where the county board will consider it. Good luck and thank you.
Thank
You're done.
you very much.
Okay, now we're ready for docket PC 1/20/22-02. And Lou is in charge of this one. Louis, you want to come up and fill us in?
Sure. This petition is for Gary and Jan Medgarden to allow a new dwelling to be located within the shoreland overlay district. Conditional use permits are required in the shoreland for new dwellings when the shoreland overlays the ag district. So not for all districts, just the ag district. When there's a dwelling in the shoreland, you get a conditional use permit. Pursuant to chapter 11.3.53. Next slide. Site location is in on Fairwater Road. Wow. Try that again. Fairwater Road, west of Elba. You can see Whitewater State Park is the green to the south. And you can see Elba on the map there as well. And it's right on the north branch of the Whitewater River. Next slide. This is a little bit closer view of the neighborhood. The area that we're looking at is surrounded by Whitewater Wildlife Management Area. So there are a number of parcels, as you can see, on the north side of the road, and then one to the west there, as well as the parcels just to the south that are private in holdings, kind of within the Whitewater. They're pretty much completely surrounded by the wildlife management area. So this is just a little area that's been developed for mainly recreational use. You see a lot of manufactured homes on trailers or campers that are in the area. There's currently on the north side of the road no permanent dwellings. There are a couple of permanent structures. There's a garage on the Medgarden's property and a smaller shed. And then to the south of the road there, you can see there is actually a house that's just to the close to the cursor there, to the right a little bit. That one has been actually removed, so that's no longer there. But there's been 2 homes permitted in that area to the south as well, just to get an idea of the development pattern in that area. Next slide. They're proposing a new dwelling. They're actually going to be using it as a cabin, a seasonal cabin. be 45 feet by 30 feet with a driveway there. This photo, you can also see the existing garage and the shed a little bit better. The shoreland district is in kind of the see-through yellow there. And that's defined as 300 feet from the ordinary high water mark, or in this case, the edge of the stream. Next slide. I've got a slide here. Oh, I did want to mention with the shoreland. The shoreland slide, that there is a setback that comes along with the shoreland. In this area, it's 150 feet from the ordinary high water mark. The proposed cabin is proposed to be 157 feet, so it would meet that setback. Next slide. This slide is showing the existing floodplain data from 1984. That's what's adopted and on the books at the moment. It's in the Zone A. You can see just to the southwest there corner, there's a little bit of a 500-year floodplain there. Next slide. However, we do have new data. The DNR had surveyed and provided new with the LiDAR data that we have. They provided new maps. They haven't been adopted yet, but we do have the data, and the areas in the county have been pretty well established for what that will look like once it's adopted. So this is a map of that data, and this breaks it out a little bit different. The red shows floodway. The blue is the flood fringe, and the green is the 500-year floodplain. Where the cursor is right now, that's the garage, and just to the north and west of that, there's a trailer there, camper, and that's where the cabin would be placed. So it's partially in the 500-year floodplain and partially within the flood fringe. The petitioners have hired a consultant to look at and verify the lowest floor elevation, so to make sure that it meets the regulatory flood protection elevation and all the floodplain requirements, and submitted a site plan that shows those elevations, and that site plan looks good. But just wanted to let you know that there is floodplain in the area, and those steps that will have to be worked through. It doesn't necessarily affect our CUP. That's specifically for the shoreland designation. So next slide. A couple of photos. This is the site with the, you can see the existing camper as of, I guess that's 12/23. The way it looked at that point, plus the existing garage. The proposed cabin would be going on that just about the same location as the camper there. Next slide.
The garage is part of the property?
It is, yep. So it's an accessory structure. This is looking west from the Med Gardens property, so you can kind of see the neighborhood, what it looks like in that area. Lots of travel-ready campers that, in case of a flood, can be removed and pulled out. Next slide. Alba Township reviewed the application, the township acknowledgement form, and signed it, and they are in support of the petition. We also got a positive letter or email from a member of the public supporting the petition. Staff analysis and draft findings support granting the CUP, and we have offered 5 conditions in case you decide to approve of the petition. If you have any questions for me, I can field those now, or at any points, feel free to ask.
Lou or Sarlee, Is that going to be on a slab or on stilts?
Slab on grade.
Okay.
And there will be fill being brought in, so the slab will be up on that fill.
How much higher are they going to raise that?
Oh, now you're testing me. I think 2 or 3.
Well, yeah.
2 or 3 feet, I believe. The
Okay.
finished elevation, the finished elevation was going to be, I want to say 779 feet. A good 3 feet above the 2 or 3 feet above the regulatory flood protection elevation.
That was my other question. Thank you.
Yeah, it does say, the proposed density is not determined to be acceptable as a long-range land use. Looks like there's a lot of campers. So are those all legally, is it a campground? Is it owned by one party, or are they all separate plotted parcels?
If you go back to one of those first aerial photos further, or get that one. Yep. There's individual parcels. And so a campground is considered anything of 5 or more campers on a property. There's one campground that has been permitted by a CUP, that one on the west side of the road. That has been permitted, yep. And the rest of them are all under the 5 threshold.
And they're all separate ownership.
Right, yep.
And how long ago were they platted that way?
I don't know. They've been in this configuration for a while. I don't think there's been new splits. On the south side of the road, there's been some new splits. There's a couple of new splits down there. But on the north side, those are older splits that have been that way, I think, since I've been here.
Are they going to add this and then have 5 more trailers? I mean, because there's 5 trailers, they're taking one out and making this cabin. After they get the cabin built, are they going to go back to 5, or are they going to leave it at 4?
My understanding is that they're removing a trailer and that won't be coming back. Absolutely, yep. So some of their long-term plans there. That'd be a good question.
Any other questions for Lou while he's here? Anyone online, Lynn or Patrick or anybody have a question?
I guess I got one more, Mark, for Lou. They're going to be putting a cabin on there, but they realistically could put 4 campers or 5 campers on that same spot.
4 campers.
Okay, because the cabin is considered one.
No, the cabin is considered a dwelling, so
okay,
that wouldn't be. I don't think that would go towards the count for the campground.
And they wouldn't have to necessarily do anything other than put them on there. I mean, they don't have to apply for a permit or anything if they so desire to put 4 more on there.
Right, they can't go over 4. So
okay,
once they have 5, then that triggers actually a Minnesota Department of Health permit for a campground and a different permit system, and then we also require a CUP for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is a petitioner or representative of the petitioner here? Would you please like to come and speak? Please give your name, address, and.
Hello, I'm Brian Woodley, 4240 West 5th Street. I'm from Johnson Schofield Land Survey. Gary and Jan couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here just to fill in for them if you have any questions. I brought my engineering tech who designed or helped design the site, and I did the survey work. So we're just here to answer any questions. The packet's really comprehensive, so I think all the information you need is in there.
He asked a question about the elevation. Was he correct on that?
Yeah, we booted it up as high as possible. Like Lou said, we exceeded what we had to by like 1.5 or 2 feet. So I think the ground around the outside of the cabin is higher than the first floor even needed to be per regulation. So we always say the higher the better. So
Does anyone have any questions for Marcia?
Being this is a cabin and it's close to the floodplain and everything, what are the requirements of a septic system? And is it just a one bathroom?
I don't know the interior. I would assume it's just one bathroom for how small it is. And there's existing septic on the site, so they have to comply with all the state regulations. Yep.
That there is existing septic, and again, does it need to be tested, or what's the protocol? And with four campers there, do they have to be hooked into any kind of, if they stay there for any length of time, do they have to be hooked to a septic system? Yeah.
We'll have to review the septic system to make sure that it's still meeting, that it's gonna be sized appropriately and that it's gonna be meeting state code. But yeah, I mean, if it's depending on what our records are, it would be able to be used again.
With all the floodplain and everything that's taken into consideration.
Yeah, yeah, code actually says that it has to be out of the floodplain or on the highest ground possible on the property. So if you're putting in a new septic system. If it's an existing, as long as it's sized appropriately. You know, in this case, it's a cabin. I mean, we are permitting it as a dwelling unit, but the petitioner plan on using it as a seasonal cabin. So I don't think that the water usage is going to be super high to begin with anyways. So we'll have to look at what's there and review that as ahead of the development certificate.
Okay, because you do state here, a dwelling is a permanent addition to the parcel, so.
Absolutely, yep. It's a little different than the camper that was there before.
Mike?
Lou, in the application, it is a one-bedroom cabin, which, you know, facilitates the size of the sewer. But again, that condition 2 says they have to get all those conditions.
Right, yep. So we just be looking at what's there. I mean, I don't even really know what's there. It could be a holding tank. Could potentially work for something like this.
They do indicate structure year round. You're thinking seasonal, but it does say here year round.
Right.
I don't know if that changed.
Well, you can have a holding for year round.
Yeah.
In this case, it says 30 by 45, but if you read the application, the cabin is 30 by 30 and then 15 by 30 is porch.
Yeah.
So I'm getting back to that cabin on a slab. So we're not looking at a large building,
No.
all right?
Okay, Patrick has a question. Patrick, you can speak. How to unmute your mic. Said he had his hand up.
Oh, I'm good. I was just trying it out.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for? Okay, no one else, any questions? Thank you.
I move to open the public hearing.
Kelly makes the motion to open the public hearing.
Second that.
And Mike seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Is there anyone online that would like to say anything? Anyone here that wants to say anything? For the second time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. Couple of guests up there, but I don't know, I guess they're not chiming in.
They've been up there.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, one of them might be Megan. She apologized. She's having some wonky internet tonight. Oh, she is. Okay. All right. Well, then she's back.
Okay, nobody here wants to say anything? For the third and final time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Nothing? Okay,
Move to close the public hearing?
there's a motion to close the public hearing and I will second it. Motion, a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, opposition? Okay, pass. All right, what are your wishes?
Patrick is raising his hand.
Okay, Patrick, are you raising your hand again?
I'm learning how to operate that hand.
Oh. Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion? What are your thoughts, wishes, hopes, dreams?
I'm quite, is condition number 5 here that the owners of the property shall allow Winona County staff to inspect the property annually or otherwise necessary to evaluate compliance with it? Is that a standard condition?
Generally, yes.
Does that allow the county an overall snooping privilege on property?
Yep.
And in order to get the permit, they gotta surrender some of their constitutional rights?
Policy that we go in and inspect, it's not a it's not a common practice.
I understand that, but
Let's get a response from. the
I know what
legal
you're
people.
saying.
It's not that they're gonna go snooping for anything and everything. It gives them the ability to inspect to determine whether or not the specific conditions that are contained in the permit are being met. And the way that violations or alleged violations are handled are generally by complaint. So they're not just going out randomly to make sure. It's if somebody says there's a problem, then they go to the property. And what they've run into in the past is an issue where they haven't been allowed on the properties in order to ensure that conditions are being met. And this provision basically says, if you want us to give you this, that our ordinance allows, you have to let us make sure you're following the rules.
But I don't disagree with you.
no, but you're surrendering your Sixth Amendment rights.
They're asking for something, we're asking for something.
Yep. And the spin on that is some people don't always do what they're supposed to do.
I
and they-
understand that. I know
So-
exactly where you're coming from, but
But it's a trade-off. Chicken or the egg, we could sit here all night and argue about
yeah,
it.
I know. Let's quit and let's move on.
Okay,
We should put in there that with property owner's permission. We should, I think maybe that's something that should be, that you have to get permission to go in the property. We can't, just as county staff, go into the property.
well, then they would just say, no, you can't go.
Well, then you follow the legal system.
That's what
And
the
that's
issue
what
has
this
been
is.
before. That's why we started putting that condition in, is because we were running into that issue and then staff was being chastised for not enforcing the permits, conditions and the ordinances. And it's because we couldn't go verify that those violations were taking place. So that's where that condition came from, with the fact that property owners were not allowing access to determine the permits were being followed.
That's why we have,
To show the property, you don't have to let them in.
no, but you can turn around and jack the hell out of your
Yeah.
stuff.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I move that we adopt the findings and conditions as prepared by staff and recommend for approval by the board.
Second,
Clarify what page you're referring to, which.
The findings?
2 through 4,
Maybe
2
I
through
didn't
5,
catch the finding on 53.
53.
53,
Mhm.
54, 55, and
Okay, all right, just. wanted to get
Okay, there's a
the
motion
findings and
and
conditions as prepared by staff and recommend for approval.
Word and seconded. Any discussion? Harley, you got any discussion?
no, I seconded it.
Okay.
Right, too.
He tried to. Sorry. Jordan's louder. He's closer to my ear.
Oh, that's fine.
Hey, any discussion? Anything else? All right.
No,
Motion and a second to approve everything the way it's presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, online, Lynn gives a thumbs up, Harley gives a thumbs up, and Patrick gives a hand up. Okay, and the motion passed. Okay, you guys as well, The next hurdle is the county board meeting, which is Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. in the same room. That's the next step in the procedure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay. Docket number PC 1/20/22/3. Eric, please fill us in.
Okay.
You've been busy this month. I'm noticing that right away.
Okay, well, I think just while we're loading up the presentation, the Assistant County Attorney Office dropped a memo off that's addressing this petition, so I guess just kind of review that as we consider this one. Okay, I don't believe the petitioners are gonna be here from the looks of it. But anyway, we'll get into this. Number 3, this is a conditional use permit request to allow Rudy Shetler's Restock Grocery, to operate a store, grocery, dry goods, and there's also produce and variety. The way that this was posted and advertised was according to the conditional use permit items in the Ag District of 462, which is a ag-oriented business, and 104620, which is, I believe, a home occupation standard. So that essentially is how staff proceeded to process this and to advertise it. Should note that we did have one about 6 years ago, a Dan Yoder in Saratoga Township, and that was similar in nature as the way that was advertised and processed and issued by the county board. Staff's understanding that this petitioner, Rudy, has bought out Dan Yoder's inventory and his material, and Dan has ceased operations of the one in Saratoga. Next slide. This is in St. Charles Township, a small acreage parcel, about 3 acres. And I want to point out with this illustration is that County Road 37 is a gravel road. It's a gravel county road. And the applicant has identified the driveway to the south, which it traverses a steep segment of woods to get down to his building site. And as you look to the north, there's also a driveway extension that runs parallel along County Road 39 and connects 37 to the north. Staff cannot determine that they have a formal easement, so one of the conditions in the application is specifically relating to that segment of driveway that these individuals are using to service their property. But again, currently on the property is a residence, and they have a barn and some other accessory structures. This structure that we're reviewing tonight has already been built. It was permitted in 2001. It's kind of a personal structure, and then as we got into fall and winter, it became apparent that it was going to be more than just a personal use structure from correspondence that we started getting from another state agency, the Minnesota Department of Ag. They did also apply for a septic permit. Holding tank was installed on the site. You'll see that in the video clip that I have, just walking around the property and showing the surrounding area. They've identified that they have parking for 100 by 50-foot area, 5,000 square feet, and it could accommodate 10 to 20 vehicles according to the applicant's submittals. There is some signage they put up along the road, the driveway points. You'll see an example of that in the photo slides. Again, there should be a packet from the Minnesota Department of Ag in your materials that talks about what they have to clear as far as hurdles, be selling some of the goods that they want to sell from their property. Next slide. Again, the way it was advertised as a home occupation and ag-oriented business. In the memo, the temporary business category has been brought to light. Staff has evaluated this as a conditional use permit, the way the findings and the conditions are currently. Planning Commission may choose, based on input and discussion, to change this from a CUP to an IUP consideration. Next slide. On the left is a photo from December that shows the front of the building as you approach it. The one on the right is showing to the north, kind of that driveway segment that runs parallel along County Road 37, connect to it. Applicant has indicated hours would be 8 to 6 on Monday through Friday and 8 to 3 on Saturdays, and employs 3 people on that site. Next slide. This is an example of the signage. I believe they have several of these signs, one on each driveway access point as you're going along 37. And I believe they may be smaller signage on the other side of I-90 or in
The Best Actress Award should go to the woman who maybe was not.
Oh, okay. From day one, mindset eliminations can be.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay, again, next slide. And it's, we don't need the audio off and kind of just narrate, so it get pretty bad. This is standing in the back of the building or the west side. This kind of shows that there's a flare out or addition. That's where I think their cooler's located. I'm just showing that there is a holding tank that's been installed that they applied for that shows where that is. And I'm now circling around to the south side of the building, and you're going to see that this part of their building is kind of showing the adjacent property to the west, south to the north. And they have like a diesel generator operated. You can see that I think that's trying to serve the need for the cooler for their produce and some of their food. And that's going to be up to the Department of Ag whether or not that's going to be acceptable type of method to keep food according to safe limits as far as temperature and those type of conditions. This is again looking to the south of the site, showing Mr. Shetler's residence and his horse barn, carriage barn, and agricultural buildings. We're now circling around to the east side. The driveway basically circles around. Now showing the exterior approach. St. Charles Township did review this application with the applicants in November, and they've indicated no comments in regards to the request. No additional comments have been received from neighbors at this point in time. Next slide. And with that, I guess I'd take any questions.
How far is the livestock barn from the grocery store? Is that far enough away that it shouldn't cause any problem?
You mean their own personal one?
Yes, well,
It's within 200 feet, but I'm not if it'd be very minimal, the amount of animals that they have on site. I would say that it's probably a couple of horses.
I understand what we're working with, but I'm just going with the matter of animals and the byproducts and considering what we're close to food.
Yeah, I'd say it's within 200 feet.
That's kind of up to the Department of Agriculture, that part.
which store closed and which one they taken over?
Dan Yoder's.
Dan Yoder's.
Yeah, I think they called it the Phantom Dent restock on Keller Drive is where, and we reviewed that in 2015.
That's south of the hay thing about.
Yeah, I've been there.
Anyone online have any questions to ask? Eric? Okay.
on your findings of fact, page 104, number 6, the use is not in conformance with the comp plan. Well, in the ag natural resource. To enhance where they live. I mean, I
Right.
guess I don't
Yeah.
necessarily agree that it is not in, you know, it's an Amish store and they're
Yeah.
limited
Yep,
mobility.
right, in the context of the comprehensive plan as far as agricultural use and economic, there is a pretty considerable consistencies, providing services. I think in the context of 6, you're looking at the comp plan and the zoning district as ag in general, and you tend to not develop commercial uses in the middle of the agricultural district, so that's why you have the one negative in that light.
But where the building's sitting, I don't know that it looks like it was ever, was it farmed? Was it farmland?
It was pasture.
At one time it was farmed, that ground down there in the bottom is sand.
Yeah, so it's not the best farm.
No, it's not prime by any means. If it gets dry, your crops will fry.
And then, I guess below 7, then, it's the discretion if it's we all refer to it as a conditional use through it, but then you identify the proposed does or does not have an identifiable date or event of termination. Our discretion.
Right.
And I'm sorry, this just was sitting here. What does this memo really mean? Home occupation versus temporary?
This would be a business, not a home operation. Not out of the home, so therefore it's gotta be business.
Okay.
Correct.
Advise of this, it's a significant change, I guess.
It was a discussion that was had with the planning department last week. I'm not sure whether the applicant has been advised of the county attorney's office position on it. The memo, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to get it written until recently, but anybody talk to them? So they may not be aware of the county attorney's office position that it doesn't meet the definition of home occupation.
Well, but by changing it, what does that do to the applicant?
It doesn't. At the end of the day, they'd still be able to do what it is that they want to do. It's just that if we issue it as, from my perspective, at least, if we issue it as a home occupation, they're bound by the restrictions regarding home occupations. One of those includes no signage. You can't have the definition, as noted in my memo, is that you can't have the external indications of what's going on inside. So that would be of concern. It also is supposed to be operated out of a dwelling based on my read of the definition of a home occupation.
Plus, they're better to have the business one. They're applying to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. They're not gonna take lightly a home occupation, in fact, they're not gonna touch it. So I think in the spirit of things, when they applied for this, they probably didn't know what they needed to do, so they were trying to work their way through this process. To me, it's only logical sense to make it a business one too, so they have the opportunity to even get their other permits. And as you can see, they put in the storage tanks, they're gonna put in the septic as a storage, they're trying to put in a generator for whatever electrical needs they have. And to me, it's a business all the way through, not a home occupation.
And I would note too, I know the word temporary is kind of what gave some pause when we were initially having this discussion. The word temporary really means, according to our definition of it, that it needs to be reviewed in 5 years. It doesn't mean that it ends in 5 years. If we just take a look at it, and there's going to be a simplified process just to make sure everything's still going the way it's supposed to. It's not going to be revoked at that point. It's just something to take a look at.
Can it be sold?
So, Mr. Chair, the question I would have is, what, if anything, in the verbiage would have to change to make the CUP consistent with what you're recommending here?
In the findings of fact, my suggestion, well, first of all, as Commissioner Ward noted, you do need to make a determination about the identifiable date or event for termination. That was, again, another area where, given whether it was a home occupation versus a temporary small business, might make an impact. That's why we left that blank. Businesses do have an end date, which is when they cease to operate, as we saw with the one that was bought out in order to start this one. So that could be an event, but it doesn't have to be that 5-year period for review. With the language, I would suggest that it would read the petition for the following conditional / and it would be changed to either conditional or interim. I would fix that as a Scrivener's matter. To allow a new grocery, dry goods, and variety store as a temporary small business in the agricultural resource conservation district. Or if you chose to proceed as a home occupation, insert that there, whichever you chose. But I think that that's where that language would belong.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear Eric's take on this also. Thank you, Stephanie.
Stephanie, where were you reading from?
In the
Page 102.
So it says in the findings after there's part 7, and then there's the part about the identifiable later event determination, the approves or denies. And it says this petition for the following conditional or interim use permit to allow a new grocery / dry goods and variety store as a temporary small business in the agricultural resource conservation district. And then if it was an interim, it would be until blank.
It looks like this, Marcia.
4, not 102. Oh, there.
I have 102.
I apologize.
What?
You got a lot
Right.
of print there.
This is the original.
Eric might be able to answer my question. There's a number of conditional uses for this area with most of the Amish. Aren't most of them conditional uses or are they interim?
They were conditional use permits up until some of the zoning changes in 2011. We adopted a new ordinance. But even at that time, we didn't have IUPs. It wasn't until a few years later, in I think 14 or 15, or even later, where we started to adopt IUPs. So yes, everything up before that were definitely conditional use permits.
Well,
and there is a lot of them in the Amish community.
Interim or conditional use?
Conditional use permits.
You see, I have concern with this because I looked at the building. It was finished in 2021, right? There's been an investment in this. It's a business. And I'm concerned about the interim use. I would think it'd be a conditional use. The lumberyard right down the road, I doubt is a conditional use. And, you know, in fairness to the business community here, that's confusion, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Chair, I think the planning department did recommend a conditional use.
That's the
did
way
you
it's
not?
been posted, yes, but
Okay.
based on the findings,
So-
I think it's safe to clarify this going to the planning commission and ultimately with the county board, just that they, based on input, I think come up with a cleaner title that gives it more justice based on the framework of the ordinance. And if it's your preference as a conditional use permit, it may be best to say after discussion that it falls more under an agricultural temporary business, which is the only other tool in the ordinance that we have outside of those 2 other sections, which have their own inherent problems too. So I think you do have some options here on how you want to proceed and recommend to the county board with this.
So we could recommend it as a CUP to allow a new grocery, dry goods, and variety store as a temporary small business in the agricultural resource conservation district in the St. Charles Township, correct?
Yes.
And do you concur with what Assistant Attorney Nuttall?
Yes, the
recommended?
term temporary does give us some grief because then it's, I think in the business where it implies staff has to come out there within 5 years or 10 years. And does that mean we have to run it through again to make sure everything is consistent? That's where, we would rely on some of the feedback that we get here tonight.
Thank you.
So they built this building for the purpose of the store, is that correct?
Yes, it was presented to us as a shop building for Mr. Shell.
Should it have been permitted before it was built?
It was permitted for personal use for a shop. And the questions was, are you going to hang a sign? Are you going to have a business? Are we enticing public to come out here? No, was kind of the understanding staff had when we issued a permit. And it became quite obvious that the plan was much more as far as size and scope of what they were trying to achieve. And then we had to say, you need to come to the planning department. We need to process this in a public review process to make sure you got the appropriate approvals for how you're going to use that structure.
Any other questions?
But the question would have been is if they just bought Mr. Yoder's business and maintained it in his facility, there wouldn't have been any.
Something like that would have never came to light if they were operating in Saratoga under that.
Purchased a business basically in the.
Yeah, I guess I'm not gonna take into consideration so much the investment that they made, because I think they should have gotten a permit before they made that investment. I know.
Yeah, if you look at the conditions, there's a high set of hurdles they're gonna have to meet. Really outside of, I'm not a building official, but as this gets to the county board, they're gonna be talking about handicap accessibility. They're gonna talk about some of those things as far as building code. Is that structure safe to be in as far as snow loads? We're gonna be looking for some information from the applicants that show that this thing is not gonna represent, public safety issue to anybody coming there and doing business too.
Any other questions for Kay's got her hand up. Yeah, that's not even
Mr. Chair and Planning Commission members. So this friendly discussion between the two departments that we're bringing in a pretty transparent manner before you illustrates that we probably have some tweaks we'd like to recommend to the zoning ordinance to make this a little more clear cut and to provide better language so that we both encourage entrepreneurs, small businesses. Obviously, we have an EDA, but we're also monitoring it, and some of this is getting to the state agencies as far as food safety and so on. So we probably will be coming forward within a month or so, depending on how many petitions for February they're rolling in. So we can maybe come up with a category or two that are gonna be a little bit more suitable for some of the uses like we've been seeing. Thank you.
All right. Now, is any petitioner here, or is a representative of the petitioner here? Is that one of the guests online, maybe?
Probably electronically.
I do not see anything. I do not hear anything. So we're assuming that the petitioner is not here or coming. Okay, public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Kelly moved to open the public hearing and Jordan seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Harley, you gotta sit here if you want to be heard. You're a little slower. You can wave your hand or something. Okay.
I'll just sit here and listen.
Okay, public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. There's still two guests up there, but I don't see either one of them doing anything. And nobody here is wiggling. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Okay, no one's moving again, nothing happening online. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. I see nobody moving. I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second that.
I made the motion, Mike seconded it. Harley, you're late again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up on that. Opposed, same.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we adopt the findings of fact and conditions with the selection of a conditional use permit and the addition of, on page, I think you've got 105, 104, to allow a new grocery, dry goods, and variety store as a temporary small business in the agricultural resource conservation district, et cetera. And with those modifications, recommend to the county board for approval.
I second, Lynn.
Yeah, I don't even,
That's the modification. Yeah, as per the recommendations of the county attorney's office.
discussion yet?
Yeah. Okay, Stephanie.
I do note, we can change the findings to make it the CUP. That would, just to make sure that we're clear on what that would mean. That would mean removing the, does not require us to remove the word temporary. So what it would mean is we would remove the word does from this paragraph. So it says regarding this petition, the proposed use does not have an identifiable date or event for termination. I do need language regarding why that is. So we would need to fill in that line right below it. We do have to provide that explanation because we have to make a finding as to whether or not that's there and it's a basis for that.
I'm sorry, requires a plan to determine whether, okay, so that's not part of the finding.
It is part of the findings. So we have to make a
It's
finding
not.
regarding whether or not there's an identifiable date or event for termination, and just like all our other findings, provide an explanation for that.
Okay.
So frequently when we're doing the dwelling on less than 40 acres, we do a residence is a permanent structure affixed to the property. Therefore, it's not a, there's no identifiable date or event. So something to that effect.
Do you have any recommendation there, planning? Or is this the right way to go in your mind?
Have an, all you gotta do is strike the does, right? Does
Right,
not
and
have-
I
Could you
don't like
explain why
the
it
new
does not?
addition of calling it a temporary business, because they might not think of it as temporary.
Yeah, I don't like the term temporary. I think
That's unfortunately the label in the zoning ordinance. So
Put
a
it on the-
conditional
put it
use.
on the list.
That's why
It's on the list. But a conditional or interim use in the agricultural resource conservation district, according to whichever paragraph it is a temporary small business. That's the
So
name of it.
that, to make this allowable, we have to do that, so
But
to
it's still,
conform
You just
with
have to
our,
tell me.
CUP,
it still can be a
the
C.
CUP,
Correct.
right?
But the other one says it does not have.
Can we just, we have one person talking at a time? I want to understand. If we strike does and we say it does not, isn't that self-explanatory or,
On all of our other ones, we've done an explanation for it.
okay,
So that's-
okay.
If we really can't come up with one, we can just remove it, but I prefer that we have an explanation for that. That's the conversation we've been having for a week.
What kind of
is I hate that
explanation?
word.
You don't know when a business is gonna come and go.
There we go.
again. So why are you even bringing it up as a point? It just exists until hell freezes over. Put that in there.
Okay, so,
We can. No identifiable end for the business.
right.
That's
I think
sufficient.
that's what we said.
Identity of a business.
Okay, I amend my motion to include what she said.
Lynn, is that a friendly second, Lynn?
Yes, I second. Lynn seconds.
Motion a second. Okay, now we're up, we have a motion and a second for. Let's get this straight.
Let's get it all
Okay,
corrected.
they
Get it all
scratched
corrected.
there.
Yep, and as I noted with the, I'm cleaning up the conditional / interim as a Scrivener's revision, as we discussed at the beginning.
Okay.
A motion to recommend, adopt the findings as revised, and conditions, and recommend for approval.
We have to vote on the change first, correct?
Yes.
No, because I amended my whole motion,
Now
right?
we gotta vote on the amendment.
Her original motion was to adopt it with the recommended changes that she was discussing. So it's all in one motion.
Okay. So this is a motion to approve the whole thing?
Yes.
With the changes that she made. And Lynn, you said that was good for a friendly second. Yes, we have a thumbs up. Any discussion? Now we're discussing.
I want to see the whole condition thing though coming up. Let's look at it. Another page. Yeah, but we want in condition 7, take interim out, get it back to conditional use.
Yep, I'm cleaning up all of those.
Yeah, and that's all we're waiting for is just get the whole thing cleaned up and then later we're arguing about it.
Any other discussion? Where to get done? Is that all we need, Justin?
So
Okay, there's a motion and a second to accept it as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The thumbs up, Harley, Patrick, and Ben. Anyone opposed? Say nay. It passed. Well. County board.
Before it comes to the county board, then in condition 7, you're referring to what the shelf settlers restock. That have to be outlined what their conditions were, because you're saying that limited to use as indicated. I'm just saying, you're referencing that, you better have that in the packet to know what we're referencing.
Alrighty, now we are up to docket PC 1/20/22/04. Brent Holly Graydon. And Eric, you're back up again.
On to number 4. This is the Graydon application, Brent and Cole. Brent and Polly are the current owners, and their son Cole.
Excuse me, Eric. You, I don't know if you can talk louder, but for some reason I cannot hear you. I've been straining to hear you all night.
I'm trying to keep my distance from this. This microphone is kind of touchy. I'll talk a little bit louder. Hopefully that will help. This request is to allow a new building site less than 40 acres, and the section of the ordinance is standard one for that site. What is over and beyond with this is that the house would be within 300 feet of a public water, so we also do have to touch on the shoreland natural feature section of the ordinance, so therefore there's 2 requests involved with this. Next slide. We have the applicant's site plan on the right, and on the left is the GIS exhibit showing how a driveway would be coming off of 248. There's currently a field access. You're going to see some pictures and just a brief video showing the existing condition of that. This is in Norton Township, section 12, located along State Highway 248 and approximately a couple miles west of the city of Rolling Stone. Next slide. This is showing immediately off at 248, where I have the red arrow as approximate location of where the building site would be. Currently it is agricultural field. The picture on the right is showing 248 looking to the west. Next slide. Picture on the left is actually neighboring property. I'm looking back east, kind of southeasterly. The feedlot that you see in the distance is the largest feedlot in the area. I believe that is the Mark Speltz operation. The picture on the right is just showing where the Explorer is parked on the existing field entrance right off of 248 as it exists currently. Next slide. They propose with this parcel about 8.8 acres, and that may vary plus or minus an acre or so. We'll get into some of the other site here associated with it, but you can see there is floodplain and shoreland, and there is some prime soils. The setback of 1,000 feet from any neighboring feedlot operation is met with this proposal. This is a LiDAR showing 2-foot contours. In between the yellow are change of elevation of 10 feet. So you see brown lines that are indicating a change in 2 feet of elevation in between. Again, the red arrow is approximately where they've indicated where the building site would be. Slopes are minimal at this point. Next slide. And this is the floodplain. This is the existing old floodplain. The blue shade is the zone A, regulatory floodplain. That ravine that you see to the right or to the north, coming in from the north, is the 500 year. That's according to the existing floodplain profile. Next slide. This is showing the shoreland overlay of 300 feet, and the shoreland setback off of this tributary is 100 feet. The applicants would be meeting the shoreland setback, but it would be approximately 200 to 250 feet away. Thus, the house is technically within the shoreland district. So that's the reason for the other chapter criteria cited in the other section. Next slide. This is the new floodplain data. Again, the brown shaded area is showing what the new floodplain profile would have in store for this property. It's showing the base floods between the house site of 747.5 to 749.57. So if we get a nasty flooding event, that's the flood elevation. So what you would anticipate for that valley, and that shaded area is representing the elevation of what that would flood out to. Clearly, the floodplain has been more constricted or shortened up based on the new data. So it's actually more conducive for the applicant's request at this time. Next slide. This is the prime soil overlay. And again, we've worked with the applicants to take a look at this. You can see that the house site would be technically on prime soil based on this, but based on the 8.8 to 9 acre configuration, they are encompassing enough rough land to put this ratio on this site under 40% prime. Staff has estimated or calculated that to be 37.5%. Reason for the configuration is showing that then with this building site, they do have some chunk of woods. They do have the creek, for recreational hunting purposes, and they do have some land to go along with the site. Quick video footage. This again showing 248 immediately off of where the driveway would come. Technically, I would assume between the gates and the building site, they're lying to the right or more to the west. Trying to zoom in on the corridor of the stream that does have a flow. And this shows in the picture too, it shows there is a couple of residential properties that sit immediately to the north of it. And again, looking back to the east at the nearest feedlot in Mark Spelt's operation in the city of Rolling Stone, roughly 1.5 miles, 2 miles in that direction, showing the existing characteristic of the neighborhood. The applicants did meet with Norton Township in December, and the township board supported the application. No additional written comments have been received from the neighbors. Slide. Conclusion project would be adding a home site of less than 40. It does meet the prime farmland standards, and the site is illustrated would be outside of the regulatory floodplain. Consider all the information in the staff report. Staff has prepared findings and conditions should the planning commission move this on to the county board for approval. Next slide. with that, I guess I'd take any questions that the planning commission would have.
Mike. I see the site plan as like a gerrymandered voting district. Was that done just solely about that prime land stuff? Cause it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's, is the extremes that this county has to do to get people to conform to build a site.
Yes, to be very clear, if we didn't encourage or to work with applicants to do that, they'd be sitting in front of the Board of Adjustment with a variance application, and the standards that they apply are much more rigid as far as meeting the criteria for a variance finding, and therefore they would have a much tougher task to get that type of approval. So since we've had the standard, this is something that we've had to work with applicants on a very continual basis to meet these standards.
Thank you. And you said that before, and I'm just conferring with you that I think that this site approach surveyed out to make this conform. I just want to state that. You had your say earlier about what you thought was ridiculous. Now I'm going to have my say that to put our citizens through this, and we heard about lack of housing. And we're playing games by having a little sliver of a driveway and then overlay. And I hope this fits their needs as a house. I don't want to hold it up, but I am frustrated that over a small parcel of land, we have to adjust things like this.
If I could follow up with Mr. Flynn, so is this our standard practice? And it's on prime soils, it's kind of an average of the whole parcel?
No, it's a strict ratio, certain percentage, and we, the
But
other,
it's the whole parcel that's under.
the whole
consideration.
parcel will fall into that ratio or that calculation, so therefore we have the 8.8 acres to consider, and it shows that it's the prime soils. I was hoping that this would be an example that the type 3s that we arbitrarily put into our definition of prime, contrary to the USDA definition, which are only 1 and 2. We've had a lot of those be a problem because we enforce it on type 3s in this county now too. But in this case, if we were to take type 3s out, those prime soil groups, you see 3 polygons, those are type 1s and 2s. So if we just reverted back to this, to the federal and state definition of prime soils, that wouldn't have made a difference in this case.
So then how about slope, steep slope? That's a big thing too. Do we do the same thing? If I have a 40 acre, if I have a 39,
building site?
then I can average it all up and make it work.
A lot of the building sites have been grabbing rough land, timberland, bluff land to add to their holdings to make that ratio work, that it meets our standard on that.
Plus a steep land can still be type 3.
Yeah.
Woods is type 3, it can be.
I don't make the rules, I just enforce them.
I know.
Anyone online have anything? Anybody else have a question for Eric? Okay, thank you. All right, petitioner or the petitioner representative, you'd like to speak on behalf, please come forward, state your name and address and.
Cole Graydon, address is 18753 Bear Creek Drive, Rolling Stone for the time being. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to give a reason why we want to do the setback from the, pushback towards the creek and the shoreland, just because my brother and I are going to be running that field. So obviously we want to conserve as much of that field as tillable land as possible and push the house back towards that rim area to conserve the tillable land and also keep it away from 248, looking to start a family and have, puppy dogs and kids, and you don't want to be right on the highway either. So push as far back away from that as possible. And yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions, I can answer them for you.
Hey, any questions?
Cole, Arlie Herber here. I got a question. Those fields along the woods up there to the south, I guess, of the creek, just a few years ago, that was all pasture, correct?
Yep, that's correct. We're in the We're in the
Go ahead.
process of trying to get it put into CRP land, and the state won't approve CRP unless it's been considered tillable for, you know, you have to have 5 years or whatever it is, 3 years. So we had to put it into tillable cropland so that we can get it approved for CRP in the future.
Okay, so you guys brought it into productive soils for a number of years.
Yep.
And I myself know that area. I guess Mark, you probably do too. It's probably the most viable place to put it in that whole area down there. It's my opinion, but that's all I have. Thank you, Cole.
Comment I would make is that what used to be pasture, you planted corn, it's still a pasture. I see there's about 40 deer eating. I by there and it's just, it looks like a herd of cattle out there.
Yeah, probably get a pretty good crop insurance claim on that one.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, nobody
Now,
else? Okay.
I'm sorry, but how, geographically, how long of a driveway will you have?
I guess I'm not sure on the exact number. It's probably 300 feet-ish. Yeah, maybe less.
340 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just know that you have to build a driveway so these large rescue vehicles can get to you.
Right, yep. Yeah, and I mean, it's currently a cornfield, so it wouldn't be very conducive without a driveway, so that'll have to be done for sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Public hearing.
Move to go into public hearing.
Kelly made the motion to open the public hearing. Jordan seconded. Harley gave it. Sorry, I didn't look that way again. All in favor, open the public hearing. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, we got thumbs up on the.
Could you have Jordan move?
Put him on mute, huh?
Yeah, we'll put Jordan on mute next time. Okay. Public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please come forward. State your name and address and what you'd like to say. Nobody moving back there? Anybody happening online? There's still a couple of guests on there. Okay.
There's a cat on there too.
If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Nobody, nothing happening online. Okay, nothing happening. For the third and final time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say.
I move we close the hearing.
Mike moves to close the public hearing and Arlie seconded it.
I didn't say a word.
Just put your thumb up.
Yeah, put your thumb up. There you go.
Well, you just feel sorry for me.
Well, yeah.
There's a motion and second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It passed. Public hearing is now closed. Okay, what are the wishes, folks?
Probably wants to do something.
I move we adopt the findings of fact and conditions as stipulated by county staff.
I second it.
Okay, Lynn made the motion and Harley seconded. I saw that hand flop up from Patrick, but I'm not sure who said first, but
I think early.
all right.
I don't.
Motion and a
I don't see any problem.
Any discussion? Everyone happy with everything?
Yep.
Any other discussion? If not, there's a motion to accept as all the conditions and facts and conditions. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Lynn said aye, Patrick said aye, Harley is thumbs up. All in favor, or opposed, say nay. It passed. Okay, your next thing is Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. That's when you go in front of the county commissioners. Thank you.
Your discretion.
Yeah.
I can come up with some.
Okay, docket PC 01-20-2205. Eric, you still have a voice left?
We're doing all right.
Okay.
Okay, again, this request is to ask for a new building site on less than 40 acres. Pursuant to 10.4636 in the findings of 5.542. Petitioners are Craig Adams and Trina Barrett. Next slide. The exhibit on the left is a GIS aerial map, again showing where the house site would be located on the eastern edge of open field and getting into a small wooded portion, a wood strip in that area. Now, I think most of the discussion tonight is going to center on the driveway approach. There's been a couple of exhibits that have been submitted previously, and I think you're receiving comments from some of the neighbors in regards to this drive access. There's some pictures and some video footage will kind of show that kind of gives a real, real-time status of that. But currently, as the report and noticing indicates, Homer Valley Lane is a private driveway. And off of Homer Valley Lane, there's several spurs or additional driveways that come off. Without doing extensive title and legal research on that, we're not sure who has easements for who, for what purposes. And some of the information that's in this report is indicating that if we do go down the road of approving this, we are going to make sure we get adequate information to show whoever is proposing something has a legal ingress and egress purpose for that property. The exhibit on the right is the applicant's site plan. It's kind of almost like a ball diamond plate fit configuration. Exactly a hexagon, but kind of pentagon shape, showing the configuration on that. And they've indicated where a septic area would go, a well, and the current status is that the 55 acres does have a house on it and some pole metal buildings in which the applicants currently own. Next slide. A couple of pictures. The one on the left, this was just taken yesterday, showing roughly the approximation of where the house would go in relationship to that field. As you get further to the east on this, you can see that there is steeper slopes than that you encompass. And the one mapping exhibit shows where the bluffs and steep slopes really are. And the exhibit on the right is looking back to the south along that private driveway. And I believe that also serves another residence that's located to the north, the neighbors Ringlowski. They also have an outbuilding that is immediately located on the other side of the driveway as they're going back to their house. And the video footage will show a better illustration of that. Next slide. Exhibit on the left is where you're coming off of County Road 15 on Homer Valley Lane. You can see the existing driveway to the right is the petitioner's 55 acres that serves the existing house and the accessory that they have. The driveway to the left of that shows that what they plan or intend to use to serve the new building site. And that also is the driveway that's currently being used by the neighbors too. The exhibit on the right is right off of County Road 15. See the Homer Valley Lane, the red sign, that's indicative that we're dealing with a private road. That's not a township feature. That's strictly private maintenance and private responsibility for the maintenance of those segments of road. Next slide. This again shows the prime soils exhibit. The proposed parcel is 4.6 acres as it would be divided, and the applicants would meet that standard by locating the house outside of prime soils to meet that standard. Next slide. Again, LiDAR showing the slopes, 10 foot between yellow, 2 foot between the brown, shows how it gets much steeper as you go further east into that property, as that picture illustrates. As you get much further east, you see that would be subject to our bluff regulations as you get into that area. Next slide. The petitioners did meet with Homer Township Board in December, and they received support on the township acknowledgement form, and we've received several letters from adjacent property owners, and I believe they are attending this meeting too. So if you need clarification on any of those points, feel free to do that. Next slide. Quick video. We're showing, this is the private drive that serves a neighbor. And we're showing about the final approach here. I wanted to show the wooded ravine to the left, which is on the, this is sitting to the west. That's showing neighboring properties that are segmented between the applicant's proposal and County Road 15. And now I'm panning towards the private road, and this is the acreage where their house and the buildings are. But I do want to show the difficulties should they try to locate a driveway across this dry run that comes in. Okay, there's the ravine there. And where the Explorers Park is about the field, as I'll get closer, wanted to kind of show the drainage feature and the terrain that exists between the applicant's existing house and the proposed new parcel that they want to build on. And currently this is an open field, and I'm showing what the building site is. I did receive clarification from the petitioner in some of the staff report materials. We talked about how it's been used 30 years, and it may have been farmed in 20, 30 years ago, but leased to a farmer to take some hay. But in the last 10 years, it has not been under cultivation or cropped. But there would be some agricultural use in the last 30 years. So we just wanted to add that to the petitioner's comments. Again, showing the neighbor on the end, their residential dwelling is located to the north, and they do own the building that's immediately off of that driveway that sits right off to the right there in that location. And I think that should be it. And with that, I guess I'll take any questions that the planning commission has.
Now, this is the one that is a private road. There is questions as to the accessibility or was this the one? Your email that as far as maintenance, and is it a community agreement? Anything on record, or we haven't looked that far for maintenance?
Staff does not have anything on record that indicates who it is, but we identify that as a potential question. So in order, if it went on to approval, we would require sufficient information that shows that parties have a sufficient right to use that as a private driveway. And ideally, the terms of maintenance and responsibility would be laid out too, so parties are.
At that because, yeah, but if we're being asked to make a recommendation on things that we don't know, it's kind of a, yeah, part before the horse.
Yeah, in, as far as conditions, Marcia, look at condition proposed number 2.
What page are you on?
It's on page 188 of the packet.
188?
Yep,
Okay.
188.
Yep. Yeah, I know it says it there, but again, once, a human nature is once we give somebody permission to do something, sometimes some of this other stuff doesn't fall into place. And I'd rather have the pieces to the puzzle first.
In as far as a cart and horse analogy, this is typical when we deal with these less than 40. Because quite often when people call and inquire about going through this process, we need sufficient information. We do not encourage somebody to commission a certificate of survey. We do not want them to seek that professional service until they've navigated the Planning Commission and County Board. And when we get that certificate of survey, it would identify the easement and the rights and all that information. So that's something that, we strongly encourage people not to survey things until they get the zoning approval to do that.
Eric, I've got a question for you. If this permit is okayed and they don't have the permission for a driveway, what is the next step for them?
There's been an alternative proposed that shows that a driveway would have to be built entirely on their property, and they may have to then transverse that ravine. That might entail culverts and fill and bringing that up to driveway standards, so it's of suitable nature. So it would mean substantially more improvements that the applicants would have to make if it's going to be self-contained.
So they've got a plan B, but does that have to come, if that goes to plan B, does that have to come back to us?
I think we have to see the rest of this hearing through to see what comes of that and what the preference would be of the Planning Commission.
I guess I just have a little bit of a hard time okaying something that we don't really know. On, what their plan is for a driveway. Either they have the permission for an easement or they have to build one. But I guess if they've got a plan for both, that's a possibility.
Again, just want to focus that this request is to allow a new building site on less than 40. And you'll have to take that under consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Eric? Okay.
Chair Clark?
Yes.
Are we still discussing the presentation? I was just reading the letter.
No, we're just asking Eric questions. We haven't started discussing.
Okay.
We're just
Okay.
asking Eric questions.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna hear from the petitioner next. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, is someone here from the petitioner or representative of the petitioner would like to speak on behalf? Please come up, state your name, address.
Good evening. Craig Adams, 36415 Home Valley Lane, petitioner, and my fiance, Bill Barrett. I guess this became a little more complex as it went along, but we actually have both the proposed builders here as well as the neighbor in question. And through another contractor, a conversation was had where we think we have the answers in the room. So, but essentially, we were fortunate enough to find ourselves in the valley as an owner of this property. And obviously having family here from out of town, they fell in love with the valley. It's beautiful. It was within our means to facilitate them moving to the valley. This would be a title shift. So I know that there's some evidence that's been put in about us retaining a title. That's not what this would be. they would have the ownership of that said lot, first of all. So in terms of the access, yes, there's two different proposals. It made more sense to us from just disrupting the surroundings as least amount as possible to use the existing driveway. We wanted to know, first of all, whether the site was suitable before we took it to the neighbor. Perhaps in hindsight, we should have done that first. But that did raise concerns from our neighbor that they potentially may not have wanted to share that. So a plan B was put forward to have a driveway built through our current property to not interfere with the driveway of the neighbor. I think, if I've understood this correctly, that might not be that big of an issue now for the neighbor, and maybe he's reconsidered with some negotiation about the upkeep of the existing driveway. I don't want to speak for him. I'll let him do that. But just, I guess, the message to you is that I think we have that issue resolved, I hope, tonight. And beyond that, it's just really about bringing another decent family to the neighborhood to enhance it and enjoy it as families do. So I welcome your questions if I can be more thorough.
Anyone have any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chair, yeah, would it be appropriate at this time to get some explanations from the folks in the room that do have the solution? Okay. Okay.
So I'm a little confused. Are you going to be the resident? Or you're
No,
just
I
the
live.
negotiator?
I live on the property. We own the property, myself and my fiance.
Okay.
We're living on the existing homestead.
Okay.
So this field just lends itself so perfectly to a new build because of the size of it. It's tree lined all the way around, aside from the driveway. It's just in a beautiful spot. It gets sunlight all day long. It's actually a better spot than my house. So in this respect, we would sell the land to the proposed builders, who happens to be my wife's sister, so my sister-in-law and her husband and their 3 children. So we would still be on that property.
Okay, I was confused. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions specifically? Lynn, do you have any?
Yeah. So is this Craig that's presenting?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Craig. Well, at the bottom of the packet, we've got dozens and dozens of pages here, but says received January 14th. Paul and Patricia Ringwelski, is that the neighbors that you're talking about that may have changed their mind?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, they say that you're offering use of your land. You're not selling that part of the land, and they have concerns about an Airbnb if that house becomes a non-performing asset. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
I certainly can. I think it's just a misunderstanding. That's not at all the expectation or the plan here. That lot, once if it was granted, would be parceled off and be under the ownership of Violet and Terry Anderson, not under Craig and Trina Asden. So it would be a home, their main home, their only home, and that's where they would raise their children, and that would be their sole ownership.
Okay. And then the second part of that letter talks about changing they agree to the joint use of the drive, but they would appreciate if the entry was at the rear of their outbuilding rather than the front. Has that also been resolved or discussed?
So I guess the egress to the field,
It says the access.
to the new potential house.
If entry to their property would be at the rear of our outbuilding rather than the front. For 40 years, we have borne the maintenance cost of the drive and the crossing.
I think that pertains to where the driveway accesses the proposed lot. And as I'm not the person building the house, but Terry and Violet Anderson are, that's why we brought them here. They're actually in the room with us. They could speak to their plans and how that would fold into
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Are they the co-petitioner or you?
Co-petitioner, yes,
Would they like to get up and speak now then? Because then they wouldn't be limited to the 2 minutes if they want to get up and speak now.
Hi, I'm Violet Anderson,
And address, please.
12717 Orchard Road, Minnetonka, Minnesota. Yes, so with the driveway, we'll wait to see what Paul says. We're open to coming up that driveway and really going into our lot at any point. That's open for discussion with us. And so I'd like to hear where exactly you would like us to do that, and we can have that discussion as well. We haven't talked to him about that yet, so we're open to it.
Hey, Lynn, do you have any other questions for her while she's here? Anybody else? Lynn? No?
No, I'm just happy that they're working that out.
When you say he, you're talking about Paul Ringwelski?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Marcia?
Yeah, I'm looking for, so this proposed driveway would be rather lengthy.
Yes.
And I know the area, and we get some cow path driveways down on these little valleys and these properties. And I do have great respect for our first responders and everything. And so that, would have to be built to a standard that can allow for turnarounds of larger, fire. They don't make small fire trucks anymore. They get bigger and bigger. So I mean, just that would be a lengthy driveway, and it couldn't be a cow path driveway. It would have to be a.
Most of the existing driveway that you're looking at actually is the driveway that our neighbor uses currently.
I'm just looking at that dotted line on page.
Is that that's the plan? I think that's the plan B driveway.
Yeah.
Possibly. I think that it's
But I know there's a
preferred
lot
to
of
everybody
cow path
that we go with
driveways
plan A and use the existing. It's just that we'll need Mr. Brunwowski's permission to do that and an understanding of, what the code is, what the understanding is in terms of maintenance and that kind of thing. So plan B isn't our preferred choice. So the document you're looking at right there is not the preferred choice. What we'd like to do is go off of the existing and reach some agreement with the current neighbor where we can go from there with as little disruption as possible.
I know it's a very quaint valley and yes. And we don't like to disturb more than we need to, but we need safety. Homer Township.
No, I know, but I
And
don't know.
being that there's, I guess maybe it's a question for Eric, but being that there's multiple parcels back here at this point, could this driveway be brought up to township code and become a township road and no one would have to worry about maintenance?
Probably want it.
Yeah, I know.
I think I can speak safely for townships that they're not interested in taking on any more public roads.
They may have no choice.
I'll confirm that.
Township officer here will confirm that.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for either one of these?
I just want to clarify. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So Plan B, which is to build a driveway exclusively on your land, is not preferred, but you will do it if you have to. Plan A is to reach an agreement with the rest of the people using the current driveway and be able to use that one.
Correct.
But either one you're okay with.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for him? Okay, thank you. All right. Public hearings.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay.
Kelly's got a question.
No, Lynn seconded.
Oh.
Kelly made the motion and Lynn seconded, or Early could raise his hand. All in favor of open the public hearing, say aye.
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 Public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Now is your turn.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Name and address, please.
Paul Ringwelski, my wife Patricia with me, Homer Valley, and we're one of the joining property owners. Initially, when this proposal came up, we had a lot of reservations in regard to it. Usage, drainage, point of entry to the property, responsibility for the road and for the road that went over our property. It was just used occasionally by the other property owner for agricultural access. And since they used it so infrequently, we just, for 40 years, paid for any maintenance. We never had a dime for that section of the road. So that's a concern. Another concern was the drainage of the property. And another concern was we like to go visit our kids in the winter sometime when things are aligned right. And so we put in a security gate there right before that dry wash. Okay. So that's basically it. Well, in the last couple of weeks, we have talked to the owners, and we've come away with the impression that they're sincere people, that the usage that they're mentioning is what they really intention is to use that property for that. Then there was the issue of the drainage. We get water over our road there that's ankle deep in the spring, or if we get a big rain. And we were concerned that water might be directed there and even exacerbate the problem and make it worse. Well, the other day, I think their potential builder and excavator came out, and they looked at it and they said, hey, that's no problem. We just can put in a couple of culverts here through your drive, and that'll address your drainage issue. Good deal. So now the owners they've come up with a new entry plan. Initially, they wanted to enter right at the front of the shop door, which I spend a lot of time in. And it's not just a driveway, it's a multiple use area. I use it for other things a lot, and I just couldn't see cars coming there, and I got to move my vehicle there because it's parked in the middle of their drive. But they have shown concern and understanding, and seems to me they've agreed that they'll move it to the other end, or towards the other end anyway, where incidentally, historically, had been the agricultural access. In fact, there had been a line fence in there, and then there was just a wire strung across, so they'd come in with the equipment, and that was it. So we have flexibility on that access, and they've shown flexibility in changing their initial point of entry. So then that would bring to mind the drive itself. Well, we had no problem them using that driveway. I mean, it seems like it would be really a bad idea to just put another driveway right next to it. And I mean, it just doesn't seem right. So if they would agree to share joint responsibility for maintenance of that driveway, because nobody else will be using it. The only people using it would be us and them. So if they'd agree to that, we're on board there. The only thing left then is that gate. Well, that can be moved. If they agree to just move the gate to the other side, it's a done deal. So in my book, this seems easy. I mean, we're not going to stand in their way. It's a nice place for a house. It's a nice idea. So we're not going to oppose it.
As a county, we wouldn't make that agreement for you. That I believe would have to be a civil.
Okay, I'd be, that's fine. Yeah.
I don't think we have the power to negotiate that for you.
Yeah, I don't think they'd have a problem with something like that. It seems fair to me, you know.
Does anyone have any questions for
Anywhere.
you?
Anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
So just a comment, Mr. Chair. It sounds to me as though you feel confident you'll be able to come up with a suitable agreement
I
with.
think there are people you can work with.
Okay, perfect.
Eric, but do they need a legal easement? Or would some kind of agreement like, whatever they're gonna do, or that's the question I would have.
Assuming they would get approved by the county board, that one condition, that's part of the conditions is when we're gearing up to issue a zoning or a development certificate permit for a new house, that's a package, a set of items that staff is reviewing. We're looking at the septic system, we're looking at the building plans, we're looking at erosion control, we're looking at everything as a result of a conditional use permit such as this has been checked off. That is essentially our review list. One thing we'd be looking for is a certificate of survey that shows that the split is being developed as it was represented, and all things that go along with the driveway that is consistent with what was discussed here has been executed to a plan. And it's staff's position that we have to feel comfortable that everything has been checked off of those boxes.
What about road frontage? Cause isn't there a 300-foot requirement for road frontage, but then that would have to be.
No, there's a 33-foot width requirement easement. So we would be looking at on the certificate of survey, a 33-foot easement for ingress and egress is acceptable. One thing that we did have to look at is the subdivision regulations. I think preliminarily looking at this, I was concerned that there had been piecemeal development over the years off of this, and we could have been in a variant situation to allow a third small split, that because then there is frontage requirements of 300 feet, 5 acres. And from what I could determine is that this farm, Mary Alexander was a previous owner. It has a pretty clear history going back. I think I looked all the way back to the 1940s, 1950s when I researched it. So I didn't see anything that put up a red flag that says I'm dealing with an infraction of subdivision regs.
So, Mr. Chair, everything he said looks like it's covered in condition number 2.
Can I ask what page you're referencing?
Well, my page number is 186, but
188 on mine.
Okay, anyone else have anything to speak for or against the petition? If so, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Anyone online? Yes, there you go. Said anything. Okay, for the third and final time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you would like to say. Okay. We need a motion to close public hearing.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Jordan made the motion. Arlie, is your thumb up? Yes.
Yeah.
Arlie seconded, to close the public
Gotta
hearing.
Make sure he's sleeping.
All in favor, close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
It passed. Yep, Patrick's hand is up. Arlie's thumb is up. Okay. Public hearing is all closed. Now, what are your wishes? Okay, yeah, we got questions.
Yeah, question for staff, 189, number 6. Phase 1 archaeological survey. Is it by our maps that is a high probability?
Yeah. And it does cross over.
In looking at the GIS overlays, maybe, don't know if this one is in your packet, but let me just show you.
Yeah.
I'll walk around.
There was one in our packet. On page 193.
Page
193.
193.
And because you have a public water feature, Homer Valley Creek, and this is a predictability on probability on higher plateaus. This you can see it got hit with some areas that are high. So I think we're going to have to focus in when we get to the point where we're reviewing the development certificate for the new house. We're going to have to make some field interpretation and judgment call whether or not it warrants a phase one request through our UW La Crosse contact. So it's that condition, I guess it's not certain, just based on what I see. I mean, I think we'd like to see it in summer conditions and just get a visual before we make that call, but it is there because it does show.
Any other required than any other development in this?
There has, we've had several CUPs in this valley already, and because of where they located, they were locating outside far enough from the stream. It didn't warrant a phase one.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adopt the findings and conditions prepared by staff and recommend for approval by the county board.
Kelly made the motion and Jordan seconded it. Any discussion? Any discussion?
I'd make sure they iron out their road
Oh,
access.
that's
Right.
in number, it's.
We got that,
Number
number
two.
two.
Covered
Yeah.
in condition.
That's
Number two. It's not our.
a lot of wars start over something like that.
Yes. And it's gotta be properly recorded. because
Yes, the easement.
changes in it.
Any other discussion? If not, there's a motion, a second to accept as recommended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposition, say nay. Okay, now your next step is on Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. It goes in front of the county board for the next step of your long journey. So good luck. It's a nice place to live down that valley. It's a beautiful place. Okay, we're done. Okay, now we're up to docket PC 1/20/22/06. And Lou is in charge of this one.
All right, number 6, last one of the evening. I'll try not to cause
Moving right
undue
along.
feedback on this microphone. Planning Commission, docket number 1/20/22/06 for Richard Michael Bronk and Walker Bronk, to allow a new dwelling to be located within the ARC on less than 30 acres on an 11-acre parcel. Just went to chapter 10.4.636. Next slide. Location is on top of Stockton Hill, Hillsdale Township, section 36 on Ridge Hill Drive. You can see in the map there, Stockton to the west, city of Winona to the east. It's just down the road from the seminary on top of the hill, if you're familiar with that area. Next slide. There's a kind of an overview of the area on Ridge Hill Drive. It's a dead end road, township road. The parcel in red, the polygon in red is indicating the proposed parcel. Richard lives in the existing home on the parcel there. You can see the longer driveway, and he's wanting to split off the 11-acre parcel for his son. I got this scale as well. There's a couple of other parcels just to the west you can see with dwellings on it. Those are also family members. They're also Bronx. And they all kind of are in business together. They all grow vegetables and sell them to markets, and are engaged in farming the land. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, well, I guess quick, since we got the notes there, there was a class 4 through 7 soils on the property. The class 1 through 3 soils are to the south, so that wasn't an issue on this piece of land. Let's go to the next slide. What's being proposed is a 100 by 60 foot dwelling. What they indicated was a barn dominium. I assume that's similar to a shouse, another play on words. I haven't heard the barn dominium one yet, but I kind of like it. It's I'm assuming most of that space is going to be for a shed and storage, and a portion of it will be for the dwelling. Slopes on the property are around 14% at this location. So steep slopes, the ordinance defines a steep slope as 12%. And so a landscape plan would be required for erosion control associated with this one once the development certificate comes. Next slide. This is a slide showing the contours with the slopes. You can see it drops off to the north into a gully and gets significantly steeper back in there. But at the location of the proposed dwelling, we're looking at about a 14% slope, as I said. Next slide. There's a photo on Ridge Hill Drive looking to the east across the property. The driveway would be coming off to the left, and the house would be down in front of those pine trees that you can see on the left of the screen. Next slide. This is from the other side looking to the west. You can see the neighbors' homes there at the end of the road. And again, the house would be coming off to the right and located in front of those that line of pine trees there. Next slide. Petitioners have been to the township and completed the township acknowledgement form. The township signed it and are in support of the petition. We have not received any additional comments in the mail prior to the or otherwise prior to the meeting tonight. I did see John Brock was here earlier, a relative of the petitioners, and he couldn't stick it out to the end. I think the meeting was getting a little long for him, but he said he had no problems with the petition either. Next slide. Staff analysis has found support in granting the CUP, and we've attached 5 standard conditions for your consideration if you choose to forward a positive recommendation to the county board. That's all I have. Are there any questions at this point?
I know. It's terrible.
Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you. Back for you, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it's on
Oh,
the
look, isn't it?
fine razorback.
Okay, is the petitioner or representative of the petitioner, please come up, give your name, address, and
Hi, I'm Walker Bronk. My address is 27212 Ridge Hill Drive, Winona, Minnesota. So yeah, we're kind of looking to build what we consider barn dominium or house, as Lou said. The house area in general would only be a 40 by 60 house. The most is for the shop, as I do work on the farm and
I wasn't about you.
that was Lynn's cat again.
and do my own maintenance on all of our own equipment and stuff. So that's the reason for such big area and big shop, is because as right now it's -5 out and it's not generally nice to work in this kind of weather. So yeah, if you guys have any questions.
Kind of cold on the fingers, ain't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So you use the term barn dominium?
Correct.
Okay, is that a definition that an assessor uses?
Some builders use it. I mean,
Okay.
it's,
I'm just curious how they will tax it. If they will tax the living part as a house and the rest of it as a accessory structure. But that's something for the assessor to figure out, how they will tax.
Depending on your age, because us old people use shelves, the younger generation use barndominiums.
Barndominiums.
That's what my daughter told me. that,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right.
It's old.
I'm old, so mine's barn and house.
Anybody have any questions for him? Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Jordan made the motion.
I'll second that. I'll beat Arlie.
Jordan made the motion to open the public hearing and Mike seconded. Harley shaking his head. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passed. We got thumbs up all around. Okay, the public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, if so, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Go back to everyone on there, because we have some guests there that have been guests all night. I don't know if they ever want to say anything or not. Like their last opportunity if they do.
Well, one was a Martian because it squealed quite a bit. So
Not like
that
a wedding,
G5
either.
thing.
Not like a wedding, you either speak up or forever hold your peace.
If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. You see nothing online happening, correct? And no one in the back wants to say anything. Oh, he's nodding his head. I don't think he's sleeping. If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward and say your name and address and what you'd like to say. No one's saying anything. Arlie, you move to close the public hearing?
I'm just gonna sit here like this. Yes, I do. Move to close the public hearing.
Public hearing. Lou seconded it. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed. Patrick had his hand up as well. Public hearing is now closed. Okay, what are your wishes?
I would make a motion to adopt the findings of fact as written and recommend for approval with the conditions as written.
Okay, Jordan made the motion and Lou seconded it to accept everything as written as presented in the document. Any discussion?
I have none.
Ben? No, okay, Patrick, he's happy. Okay. There's a motion, a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Waving his hand. Yep. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Okay, yeah, high five back there.
Yeah.
Now you have to go in front of the county board on Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m. for the next step.
Okay, and is it a meeting here as well?
Meeting is right here.
Thank you.
And sometimes a lot of this is just put on a consent agenda.
Unpredictable.
Very
Oh, that was good wording. I was sitting here trying to figure out what to say.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
I was going to say interesting.
All right. Board of Adjustment update. There wasn't any.
No meeting today.
Okay. County board update.
The two petitions that were in front of us at that time were the, referred to as the dog catch housing, and the solar energy, and with both those came up some discussion of IUP, CUP. Solar gardens, when we first started doing them, we put a 25-year, we had a definitive time. seems like somewhere along the line, we've lost that ending date. And again, with the housing, again, the whole issue I brought up earlier is, are we eliminating future housing when we desperately need housing? Should it be an IUP when we're asking people to invest in septics and water systems and everything, and then say, oh, no, you gotta take it, you gotta tear it down? Doesn't make sense. The whole community needs to have
Almost
those.
like Steve.
Yeah, Steve and I think a lot alike.
He is.
In rural, in the rural landscape.
Well, I'd make one suggestion on some of the sewer aspects. Instead of doing this mound business, I think they should go back to the double tanks, like the dry well system, but the drain fields on the dry well, instead of some of this double mined in a high static area, if you're worried about the drain fields filling up.
And that's state.
That's a state
yeah,
issue.
Yeah, but I mean, you sit in positions that you can talk to them yahoos
And see if we can't come up with something.
better, yes.
Okay, that's all for the county board?
Yes.
Okay, we kind of failed at this last month, so we're gonna try it again this month, February 8th, 5 PM training. And they're really, really tired of looking at us, so it's all in some. So we can stay in a nice warm house and enjoy training, but we have to cook ourselves, which isn't the best situation.
And
Unless-
Mr. Chair, you have to keep your videos on the whole time, so we know you're actually watching it.
Harley, put yours on mute though.
May call on people. and there's gonna be
Call me anything you want.
I can't just put up a picture of me.
And so, but with that said, where I live, my computer will tell me I have poor connectivity, and if I turn off my video, I have better reception. So
If that happens, let us know. We prefer video on. That's an acceptable reason not to. We still might get called on.
yeah, it just tells me that.
I have that too. You have Hughes? Is that
Okay,
who
no,
you have?
is there anything else we
I have
brought for
Hughes,
this
same thing.
meeting?
I'd move to
February 8th at 5 PM. Is that the training, 5 to 9?
8th at 5 PM, and it's all online. It's all Ring
Sometimes I
Central.
get it.
Okay, I work until 6:15. Can I attend later?
You betcha.
You'll only get
Yes.
68% credit though then.
I'll come in when I
Gotta get
can.
them all right, though. You gotta answer all the questions correct.
Okay, well, it's not my first training, so
I know.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what, Kay?
Tuesday, February 8th at 5 PM. Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Yay, we did it.
Meeting adjourned.
It was